はい、皆様こんばんは。こんばんは。皆様こんばんは。一回ちょっと聞いていただきたいんですけども、この後、チャールズが登壇であったり、その他のプロジェクト、インターセクトなど、プレゼンテーションを行います。で、その際になんですけども、すべて英語での、スピーチになりますので、受付でこちらのイヤホンお渡ししたかと思います。もらってない。はい。そちら、もらってない。で、ですね、この後、こちらの画面に QR コードが出てきますので、翻訳って書かれてます。そちらの QR コード読んでいただいて、こちらですね。こちら携帯でまずスキャンの方、お願いいたします。日本の皆様、こちら、今画面に映っている QR コード、スキャンお願いいたします。翻訳ツールになります。で、イヤホンお持ちでない方は受付で、受付にイヤホンございますので、必ずお知らせください。この後この QR コード画面に投影されなくなりますので、今のうち必ずスキャンの方お願いいたします。イヤホンお持ちでない方いらっしゃいますでしょうか。はい、ありがとうございます。はい、ありがとうございます。こちら QR コード今のうちにスキャン必ずお願いいたします。イヤホンお持ちでない方、前の方で今お配りしております。今のうちに、QR コードのスキャン並びに、イヤホン接続していただき、使えるかどうか確認を今一度お願いいたします。まもなく数分後に、スピーチ始まりますので、必ずスキャンの方お願いいたします。ちょっと反応しにくいんですけども、トライの方お願いいたします。もし QR コードをお持ちの方いらっしゃいましたら、LINE のところとかに載せていただくと助かります。汐留さん、QR 写真撮ってオプチャとかに流してもらっていいですか。オプチャに流さなくていいや。なんかこれが QR コードですみたいなスキャン。少し読み取りにくいかと思うんですが、スキャンの方できましたか。イヤホンありますか。OK です。お願いいたします。必ず日本語に設定していただいてお願いいたします。日本の切れた。電池もう切れました。今一度お知らせになります。現在画面の方に投影されている QR コード、翻訳ツールになります。必ず、スキャンの方お願いいたします。同時通訳の翻訳になっております。画面の方今のうちにスキャンの方お願いいたします。はい。そうですか。汐留さん、ちょっとサポートをお願いしていいですか。大丈夫だと思う。携帯開いていただいて、取れへんかもしれないです。QR コード今のうちにスキャンの方お願いいたします。イヤホンをお持ちでない方は必ず、受付にて QR、イヤホンお渡ししておりますので、受け取りのほどお願いいたします。大丈夫そうですか。 間もなく始まります。はい。はい、そちらをお願いいたします。間もなく始まりますので、今のうちに QR コードスキャンお願いいたします。スキャンができない。そうしましたらこちらで、はい。もしスキャンできない方いらっしゃいましたらお知らせください。はい、こちらでサポートいたします。はい。はい、こちらで、はい。大丈夫です。チャールズが話し始めたら翻訳されます。はい、OK。もし何かあったら、でもね。最後のお知らせになります。この後スピーチ登壇始まります。翻訳ツールございますので、もしイヤホンをお持ちでない方、QR コードわからない方いらっしゃいましたらお知らせください。はい。汐留さん、ごめんなさい、すみません。塩爪さん、ありがとうございます。ありがとうございます。大丈夫かな。Alright, so we are going to the speech. So please have a seat, please. Please have a seat.
Good evening, good evening. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Midnight Tour of Japan 2026. It's great to be with you here in Osaka. A big hello to our friends dialing in from the live stream. We have got a great lineup of speakers for you this evening, but before we get started, we have some items of housekeeping to attend to. There is no scheduled fire alarm, so if the alarm does sound, please follow the instructions of the staff. The bathrooms are to your right at the back of the room. You will notice that we have photographers here. You will be able to access those photos by scanning the QR codes at the back of the room via the Memento app. And we are offering translations, as Tai Chi already showed us. If you please scan this QR code if you need translation. Okay, we are about time to get started. It is now my pleasure to introduce my friend, Mr. Adam Dean, to the stage. Adam.
Hi, everybody. All right, I'm up there, and so yeah, I'm glad to be back here in Osaka. Osaka was actually the very first city I ever came to and visited in Japan 10 years ago, before I ever heard about Cardano and blockchain and all this fun stuff. So I'm very honored to be here with you tonight. And we wanted to spend a few minutes just telling you about the cool game we have for everybody to play tonight. So, and that is Hydra events. And so you can play, you can learn about Midnight and Cardano, and you can win awesome prizes. So, what is Hydra Events? Hydra Events is a real-time attendee gamification and activation application, and it's built on Cardano and leveraging the Hydra Layer 2 technology. So for today, it's going to track all of your activity, all the points you earn, and all the prizes you get in real time. And in the future, we're looking forward to bringing you privacy by midnight. So when we come out and do an event like this, I will be able to prove there was 200 people here without proving that who you are, what you did, or which prizes you earned. So excited for the future as well. And so we have 3 ways to play. You can use the community track, which has a lot of cool resources from Midnight and Midnight Foundation about joining the Discord and joining the mailing list so you can stay up to date with all the latest information. If you're joining us as a potential, current, or future developer on Midnight, we have a developer track where you can sign up to have access to all the latest resources. And then we have special Osaka-only activities and events that you can choose from. So do one, do all 3, and then take your spin on the gotcha gotcha machine and see what you win. So to get started, if you haven't already, you can scan this QR code, and this is the point in the presentation where they've asked me to emphasize that this is only for the members of our live in-person event today. So I'm sorry to the live stream people that are joining us, but we won't be able to get you any prizes. So you'll scan the QR code, you'll choose a social authentication login provider, which is going to create you a wallet on the Hydra ledger. And after that, you can start looking at all the tasks that are available, complete them to earn your points. And so it's pretty simple. You complete tasks to earn points. You earn points to get tokens, and then you put the tokens into the gotcha gotcha machine and get cool prizes. But in the spirit of Japan, even we don't know what is going to come out of those Pokeballs. So you can have stickers, you can have some merchandise, we have Lace-branded hardware wallets, and we also have a really cool demo of the Lace mobile wallet, which is now available for the first time in Japan. And then, of course, some really good prizes like iPads as well. So definitely check it out and talk to our team over there. And then the one that I'm maybe most excited about is we're here to talk about Midnight tonight. And so we wanted to give everybody a hands-on demonstration of what a ZK proof really looks like. So by listening to our talks tonight, talking to the teams that are here in attendance, and most importantly, meeting with all of your Midnight ambassadors who are in the room. And if you're a Midnight ambassador, raise your hand. All right, yeah, these fine gentlemen over in the corner here. So go and introduce yourselves to them, say hello, tell them your name, find out their name, and connect. And you will discover secret hidden words throughout the night, and you can complete a ZK proof to get the most prizes. So there's a total of 10 secret words hidden around. You don't need all 10, you only need 5. And when you submit your valid proof, you get the biggest bonus of the night, and so you can get a prize from the machine. And so what you're submitting is a zero-knowledge proof commitment, proving that you knew 5 valid secret words, but you're not revealing which words you found. And that's how zero-knowledge kind of works at a very rudimentary level. So privacy-preserving systems like the Midnight Network operate on very similar functionality. And so to start, I'll give you a secret word from us at Hydra Events, and the secret word for Osaka is regenerate. So take a picture, save that to your phone. That's your first word of the evening. And so, with that out of the way, it gives me great pleasure to introduce a man who needs no introduction, but I'll give it my best anyway. The CEO and founder of Input Output. Please welcome back to Osaka, Mr. Charles Hoskinson.
Thank you so much, Adam, and actually great respect to the Hydra Events team. They're doing really cool work. They're physicalizing the entire cryptocurrency space. You know, cryptocurrencies, they live in the sky. Like, where are they? But what they're doing is dragging them and putting them into vending machines and into ATMs and point-of-sale systems. And we're going to live in this world where all the things that you buy from those things will eventually be on Cardano. So that gives me great pleasure. So I love Osaka. I lived here in 2015 and briefly in 2016. Kept coming back. And Osaka's got a certain charm to it. You know, people say you're either an Osaka person or a Tokyo person. And, you know, if those damn Tokugawa didn't win, you know, Japan would be ruled from Osaka. It'd be a better country. But it's a good place because people are honest and they tell you exactly what they mean and what they feel, and very loyal. You know, 10 years ago when we came about Japan, we said we're going to build Cardano. And not a lot of people took us very seriously. And not only did we build Cardano, created a global movement with 1.4 million people, we now have an on-chain constitution. We now have a government. You know, we went to Argentina. We had a convention. And we wanted to come back to Japan and give a tour and talk a bit about a variety of things. First and foremost, still the majority of ADA and the user base is in Japan. So we wanted to come talk about Cardano, where Cardano's at, the future of Cardano, the present of Cardano. And the reality is Cardano is quite strong. So tonight you'll see presentations from people from Intersect and presentations from people that are actively working and building the network up and talking about things like Laos, of how Cardano could be 60 times faster, or Hydra, where Cardano can now reach into the physical world. It's a tremendous progress that's been made. Second, we always meant Cardano to launch other ecosystems and capabilities. In the original Why Cardano document from 2016, I had this concept of Cardano SL and Cardano CL. And CL was the computation layer, of which there'd be many. So it took me 10 years to actually build one of them, but we built Midnight. And Midnight is incredibly exciting because what Midnight does is it allows us to take the technology of Cardano and sell it to the rest of the cryptocurrency world. Ethereum and Bitcoin and Solana and others. And this is where we get millions of new users. This is where we get more transactions and other things. So I wanted some of the Midnight people to come in and talk about, well, why is Midnight special? What's Midnight doing? What's Midnight providing? And how do these things scale and grow the network as a whole? And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was, where is the industry as a whole going? Because we've been doing this for a while. You know, when I was young, the industry was young. I came in 15 years ago, and now I got the belly and the gout in the toe, and the hair is not where it used to be, and these types of things. And yet the revolution has not quite taken off. There are 550 million people in the cryptocurrency space, trillions of dollars of value, but yet cryptocurrencies have not reached the mainstream. They're not there yet. I was doing several interviews with various papers, some up in Hokkaido and some here in Osaka. And everywhere I go, the media asks, well, when does the revolution begin? And I said, well, every one of the Fortune 500 companies, it doesn't matter if it's Sony or Toshiba or Toyota, or it doesn't matter if it's Microsoft or Google, has a blockchain research group. And they're great groups, and they're filled with amazing people that are very talented and very capable. And they would do a pilot. We're going to get our books on a blockchain. We're going to put this video game on a blockchain, these things. And I remember reading about these pilots in 2015, in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2020. JJ's one of my commercial guys, you know. He goes and gets these pilots done. And it's like, all right, we got a pilot with this big company. We're getting all excited. And why is it Microsoft is not running on a blockchain? Why is it Toyota is not running on a blockchain? They've had 10 plus years of pilots to do these things. So when you look at Midnight as a whole, that's where Midnight began. 6 years ago, we asked that question, what's missing? Why didn't the revolution take off? And it turns out it's pretty simple to explain. So I got this nice whiteboard here because I like whiteboards. So for the last 15 plus years, we've lived in this world, the world of public. And public means public. You can see it. Everyone can see it. Anything's in, it's there. Satoshi Nakamoto, the first Bitcoin, gets minted January 3rd, 2009. We can all see it. We can all verify it. We can all talk about it. Those records are still here today, and they're just as good, if not more so today, than they were when it was created in 2009. And that's awesome when you want properties like it's time-stamped. You know, when did it happen? You know, it's immutable. So once you put it in, you can't take it out. It's irreversible. all these great properties. It's auditable. You know, you have high faith that if it's there, it's actually there. And there's a lot of use cases where this makes sense, like land. You'd want to know that the land that you own, the chain of ownership, who owned it, all these things. Educational credentials, you graduate from this college, you graduate from this high school, you'd want this thing to exist. But life is complicated, and we have a private side. And that private side, at the individual business and governmental level, we have secrets that we must keep for safety. Maybe how much money we make, how much debt we have, criminal record, demerits, embarrassing HR stuff. Maybe you're a big fan of Taylor Swift and you just don't want the world to know. Teardrops on your guitar. You know, maybe you've gotten super otaku with a particular J-pop star. Who knows? Maybe you don't want the wife to know. That's your private life, and you have the right to have a private life. So why the big businesses have not adopted cryptocurrencies and really gotten into that world is they spent all this time with their pilots and they built this whole side out. And then the CEO would say, okay, that's great, but I can't let my competitors know this side. That side's problematic for me. If they know this side, then they can do all kinds of shenanigans, and I'm at a disadvantage. So can I have this side, and then this is still like my control? I say, well, that defeats the whole point. Because if this is decentralized and this is centralized, it's not a cryptocurrency. It's not a blockchain. The whole system collapses. And what's the point of even putting it on a chain? These types of things. So they just stop. They move on. So what we tried to do with Midnight is say, can we invent some technology that lives in the middle? Can we have something that has the timestamping, the immutability, the provability, the auditability, but it also allows you to have a private side? And this was 6 years of research, hardcore research. And the answer is yes, it's actually possible to do this. It's not easy, and it's not clear what combination of things is going to be the market winner. But 6 years ago, we started the R&D project, and we brought a lot of very brilliant scientists and engineers together, and we looked as the industry evolved. And what we discovered is that there's this rich, beautiful triangle. It's a nice train there. I used to live in New York and nearby Van Wyck Station, and you'd hear that. So like, just like home. And the triangle has kind of three corners to it, and we're going to talk about it. So not dogs, pet, privacy-enhancing technology. So when you talk about the private side, you're not just talking about one little thing. You're talking about how do you collaborate without sharing? How do you compute without seeing? How do you prove without revealing? There are behaviors of these types of things, and privacy is a rich and intricate topic. You can get many PhDs worth of knowledge from this. So you have to understand that there's a universe of these pet technologies. So the first thing with Midnight is we had to figure out, well, how much of the universe do we want to cover? And what we discovered is if we actually wanted to provide privacy to Toyota or privacy to Google, one of the partners we work with on this, is we need to actually provide the whole spectrum. So there's a lot of complicated and fun things to work on, like multi-party computation and fully homomorphic encryption. There's trusted execution environments. There's zero knowledge. There's differential cryptography, all these things. In fact, it got so complicated, I said, we need to explain this in some way to people. So we're actually working on like a Pokemon ripoff card game right now, pet Pokemon, so you can catch them all. So we can have some visual representation for all these clouds of technologies. But one of the pillars of the Midnight story is making this simple and easy for the builder, for the consumer, for the company. Because the problem is, if you don't understand how this works, it's kind of like trying to pretend to be an AI expert and build your own ChatGPT. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of complexity, it's a lot of expense, and unfortunately, you're really not going to get anywhere if you dig yourself in. So what we want to do is treat this kind of like a black box, and then anybody, whether they're in Ethereum or Cardano or they're in Bitcoin, they just call an API, they just use an interface, and then magically they can get something done. So that in itself, rich topic, we could spend hours on to it. But the thing is that privacy by itself is not a product. Privacy is a component of a product. It's a component of your business, your workflow. You want to keep your HR records private, but they're not your HR records. You want to keep your medical records private, but it's not your doctor. It's not your surgery. It's not your service. So you have to have something more to this story. There has to be more to the picture. That's why the rest of the triangle is so incredibly important. Really, at the end of the day, when you ask, well, why hasn't the revolution happened? A huge component of the revolution is compliance, is the safety, is what are the rules about how we do business and how we work together and how we talk to each other. You see, compliance isn't just about keeping a government happy, like, oh, do know your customer and anti-money laundering, all these other things. It's much more foundational and fundamental. It's about the rules of the relationship. So you say, okay, my children are going to join this chat app. I would probably like built into the chat app that no 42-year-old men can talk to them. I'd like it only to be 11-year-olds talking to each other. That makes me comfortable knowing that that's the rule of that system. And if it's violated, I'd feel uncomfortable. If I'm going to share this information with you, I should know up front what you can do with it, who you can share it to, under what circumstances I can pull that information back. That's a regulation, that's a compliance component of this. One of the reasons why blockchain hasn't been adopted is the minute you send a transaction into Ethereum and into Bitcoin, into all these other systems, you lose control. It's not your transaction anymore. It belongs to the system. And everyone everywhere gets to see it. Everyone everywhere gets to play with it. And that's not safe. There's a temporal component to privacy. You may think it's okay to share something, and then a week later, a month later, say, maybe I shouldn't have shared that. Maybe that shouldn't be out in the open domain. Maybe I need a backseas on that. The problem is there's no backseas when you deal with these open systems. And so then you're not just assessing a risk of today, you're assessing the risk of forever. The person you are at 20 is making decisions for the person you are at 30 and 40 and 50. And as we gain wisdom as we get older, we realize how bad of an idea that is. So compliance is really about the regulation of behavior. And when you combine that with privacy-enhancing technologies, what you can do is you can move towards a world of zero trust. Instead of sharing everything, you share just what is necessary for something to happen. The minimum viable thing. I don't tell you where I live. I don't tell you my name. I don't tell you any of the details. I just prove I'm over this age. I just prove that I'm a Japanese citizen. I just prove that I am in Osaka for that particular transaction. But you know nothing else. So if the hacker shows up and steals all the information, all they know is someone from Osaka did something somewhere for somebody. Okay. What's that have to do with the price of tea in China? It teaches you nothing. You gain nothing from it. But if they collect all this other information, they know your name, your address, your car that you drove. Perhaps they have pictures of your kids, all kinds of things. That's unfortunately where the internet's at right now. And when you put it on a blockchain, they know it forever. And they have access to it forever. So you need the private side for these things. The other side of the triangle, which is a lot of fun to think about, and this is the user experience side. People often ask, when does grandma get to use cryptocurrencies? When do mainstream people get to use cryptocurrencies? Well, one of the big problems with this is you have to know how they work to use them. And there's no consumer product in the world that has that barrier. You know, this right here, it's made by Samsung, and it has software made by Google. And there's over 5,000 companies that come together to build this. And I don't have to know how any of these things work to use it. I just click this button, I put my thumb on, and then magically it works. And there's these little buttons here, and if I want to open up my pictures, I open up my pictures, and then lo and behold, there's a gout crystal. How about that? It's in my toe. That's what I step on every step. It hurts. And it just works. I don't know how. It just does. And you can be 80, you could be 8, and it works the same for everybody. That's why there's 5 billion plus people that use it. And that's why it went from nothing to 5 billion faster than anything in human history. So if you have all those people living with a consumer expectation that that's how the product should work, then how do we in the cryptocurrency space say, well, okay, yeah, that's all fine and dandy, but all of you people should learn how public key cryptography works, what gas fees mean, what impermanence loss is, how miner extracted value is, how to connect your wallet using this bridge and adapter. You should, of course, know how 24 keywords in recovery work, and you know how Ledger works, right? And cold storage and hot storage. And if you lose your keys, you do understand you've lost all your money in these things. So, of course, there's no one to save you. And well, what if rollbacks occur? Like right now, there's a soft fork going on. So even though it worked before, because this rollback happened, you just lost all your money. Oh, you went over a bridge? You didn't know about bridge hacks, did you? Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Doesn't make any sense to you. It's insanity. They're not going to adopt it. That's why the revolution's not happening. So you need intention. You go into the coffee shop and you don't tell the person how to make the coffee. You say, I want the coffee. It's their job to figure out where to get the beans, how to heat the beans, how to grind the beans. They give you the coffee. So abstraction really is about saying, I don't care about what blockchain it runs on. I don't care how the wallet works. I don't care about the infrastructure. I just tell you what I want. Smart compliance says, these are the rules I tolerate. And privacy, what that does is say, these are the terms and conditions about what you get to know. And I get strong math-based guarantees that you know nothing else. This is what's missing. And that's what we need to actually get the whole world to come into the cryptocurrency space. It doesn't diminish what we've learned on the public side. There's never been in human history systems like the public side. Typically, when conquerors come, the first thing they do is they take control of the ledgers and edit them. They say, you know, your family used to own that land for 500 years. We're just going to change the ownership over. Now we own it. We're just going to burn those records. So this is valuable, and it means something, and it's important. And it's not diminished, but there's a yin and yang in life, and you have to have a balance in things. You have to have a flow in things. And if you're not balanced, it's like having a stool missing a leg. You fall over. And so the space needs privacy. So we created Midnight for this. And then we were thinking, gosh, how do we make that work? Because we want to sell it to everyone. We want it to be useful for everyone. So we decided to do something very different and unorthodox. We just gave it away. We did a glacier drop. We did a scavenger hunt. We allowed everybody everywhere to just participate. Many people here in Japan did. No one had to buy it. No one had to do anything for it. They just had to redeem it. We brought 8 ecosystems, 7 different blockchains together, and Midnight launched very strongly last year. And very soon, the network is turning on. So we're doing a tour throughout all of Japan, and we're having a conversation in the rural areas, having a conversation in the urban areas, conversation in the finance areas, conversation in the agriculture areas, about getting ambassadors, getting people to understand these things, and asking a very fundamental question: if you had these capabilities, what would you do with them? Maybe you're a regional sake producer, and you say, we want to go global. We want to start selling outside of Japan. And how do we build a brand? How do we get people excited about it? Maybe you're a mid-sized newspaper, and COVID hits you really hard, and you're trying to find a new way to engage your customers and make money. Maybe you're a Wagyu seller, and you want to actually start branding your things, improving properties of your cattle, and get all your certificates on. Maybe you want to tokenize the yen and actually create a yen-backed stable coin, because apparently people who are doing this are making really good money right now. Tether just bought 27 tons of gold. 27 tons. That's nation-state level. So maybe Japan wants to get a little bit of this and trade this on a global market with people. Big and small, you tell me the rules and who they apply to. You tell me what you want to do, with those rules, and you tell me how we keep everybody honest inside this system. It's a system, very simple. And if I've done my job right, it should be like ChatGPT. What made that application so special, they certainly were not the first AI people. Artificial intelligence has been around since 1948, with the artificial neural network that was like McCall and Pratt. It's very old. But it took off with them because they made it simple. You didn't have to know how ChatGPT worked. Just a black box. You ask it something like an oracle, and it just tells you that thing. It just comes out. That's how it should be. And they went from no users to 800 million users in just 4 years. This is very magical. So you go all the way through Japan. We build in ambassadors. People learn these things together. We talk about these things. We figure out better ways to explain them. And we try different things. But ultimately, what it's about is real-world use cases. Midnight is only valuable if the network is utilized. And the way we built it, you could pay in Bitcoin, you can pay in Ether, you can pay in stable coins, you can pay in any asset you want. And what I care about is you're doing something with it. The magic of this type of technology, when you harmonize things, you bring people together, is it empowers people. It brings people back to the table and they get some agency. And not just individuals, but companies and nation states. I was once in the country of Georgia, and I was having dinner with the prime minister there. And I said, hey, do you guys ever think about doing a Lira-backed stablecoin? He said, well, we did. And the IMF showed up, and they said if we did that, they would cancel all of our credit. So imagine that. You are a democratically elected leader of a country, and a group of people outside of your country come in and tell you how to run your country, and you have no choice but to say yes. So the whole democratic process is over. You don't have sovereignty anymore. So when Japan looks to the global market and you create some amazing invention here, like quantum computing or fusion, something fantastical, what stops China from stealing it? When you create Studio Ghibli and they create Totoro, I grew up with it. I grew up in Hawaii. I love them. And then ChatGPT creates Ghibli mode, and then suddenly people can just make up art anytime they want. Miyazaki just lost 40 years of intellectual property with that. What does he do? Go and sue this multi-trillion-dollar company? And hopefully they just say they're going to stop, but they don't really, and then somebody else copies it. So it's ultimately about restoration of your sovereignty. It allows when a Japanese company wants to do business with somebody in Venezuela or China or America, that they can keep the rule set consistent. When an individual wants to do business with somebody, they can keep the rule set consistent. There's this spectrum of sovereignty. And when you have consistency, you build trust. And when you have trust, you can build peace with people. That's the magic of this. So this is what cryptocurrency was really meant for, and that's why it hasn't taken off. We overpriced. We always do as humans. Amazon was worth quite a lot in 2000, and it took 11 years for Amazon to go back up to the all-time high. But the vision was there, the everything market. They wanted to sell it to everybody. And it's similar with the cryptocurrency markets. They go way up, and then they go down. And they go way up, and they go down. And I get fatter and sadder. But that's okay, because it's not about that. What it's about is, are we changing lives and are we changing business? And I'd like to live in a world where we can trust each other, and I'd like to live in a world where what we want actually gets executed. And we have to learn about this together. You know, another part of this tour is to build up ambassadors and build up communication, talk to each other. These are not easy concepts. These are concepts where even people who have PhDs in computer science struggle with every day, and they've devoted their life to it. So why should we implicitly be able to understand it instantly and know everything about it? How you understand these things is never as an individual. You understand it as a group. You come together and you talk about it. You talk amongst each other, and you get little by little, the resolution goes up, the lights in the room get brighter, and you can finally see things clearly for the first time. We had to have Bitcoin to reimagine why this was valuable, and it's not going to go away. It's here to stay forever. And then we had to have all the failures of the last 16 years in the public side of the space to understand why we need this side of the space. And this side of the space is not a product of the cryptocurrency space. These privacy-enhancing technologies, people have been working on them since the 1950s. 75 plus years of academic research has gone into that side of the triangle. These intentions, this is what Wall Street does all the time. You say, I want 100 shares of Microsoft, best available price, settle when you can. Trading for over 100 years for these types of things. Compliance is what every nation state does, every insurance company does, every auditor does, the legacy world, every day for trillions of dollars of value. How do we keep people honest? How do we make sure the system works? How do we make sure the doctor's real? How do we make sure the surgery has a good outcome? All these things. So these are old things. We didn't invent them. We take them and we update them, and we put them together in new ways and new formats. And then when we take that and we put it with the public side, there's harmony throughout the whole system. That's the magic of Midnight. Midnight itself is also not just Cardano. It's a product of many different ecosystems. There's technology from Aptos, Near Protocol, Zero Cash, Zcash, and over a dozen other blockchains that we took technology from. Because it turned out that a lot of people have been working on this in their own way. And we said, why are we an island? We have to be global. If we say we want to work with everybody, it's not just work with them, it's also they did good things too, and bring them in. The one sin I'd say we committed in Cardano land is we were too pure. There's purism, pragmatism, and aspiration. And we tried to build everything from scratch, and we tried to be everything to everyone. And we made enormous progress, and we learned a lot. And it's one of the reasons why the code is so good, and it's one of the reasons why it's so self-consistent and so elegant and pure. But the problem is, if you try to be perfect, you'll never succeed. You'll end up wandering and always chasing the next thing. If you're pragmatic, what you can do is trade with people and realize that there are things that they built that even though they may not be perfect, they'll move you along faster. So in 6 years' time, we were able to do a decade's worth of things, and we're moving very, very quickly with all of this. And that's kind of the raison d'etre of it. So in the coming presentations, they're going to talk a lot about the Cardano ecosystem, and there's also going to be some discussion about how this benefits Cardano. One of the last miles we have to cross is that while we built the most decentralized, best governed cryptocurrency ecosystem, we don't have a strong DeFi layer right now. And that's why we get criticized a lot. You tell people, oh, I'm in Cardano. Well, Cardano's not as big as Solana. Cardano is not as big as Ethereum. It's a fair criticism. The MAUs, the monthly active users, the TVL, the transaction volume, it's not as big. Because we were very principled with things. It took a long time for that ecosystem to grow. So the question is, how do people who build on Cardano, how do the dApps who build on Cardano, how do they get ahead? It's not by being slightly better, faster, cheaper. That's like building a slightly better BlackBerry or a slightly better Palm Pilot. You have to win by building the iPhone. In other words, you win by doing something different, something new and unique for the ecosystem. So that's why we have people like Hydra events, because they're doing things new and different. That's why we have Iagon, because they're doing things new and different. And that's why we have Midnight, because it gives everybody building on Cardano a new dimension to build into. The privacy dimension, the intention dimension, the compliance dimension. They can deal with the $10 trillion real-world asset revolution. The intent revolution, 90% of all DEX transactions and 60% of all DeFi volume will be intent-based by 2030. Over $1 trillion a year of trading volume. It's a massive market opportunity. The first steps to figure out how to make that easy will get all the users, because all the settlements changing to different ledgers. And there's no reason those can't be Cardano applications as they build and hybridize, and there's no reason they can't use ADA for these types of things, because that's why we designed the network the way we did. So we also wanted people to understand that in this new future, there's definitely a place and role for Cardano. It could be just as big and prominent as there is a role for Bitcoin, if not more so. The new generations don't kill the old generations, they make them better and they augment them. And that's how you build something great and decentralized. You take care of the past and you respect it, just like Japan does with its past. You preserve the things that are great. But then you realize that you have to embrace the future and pull these components together. So we're having a really good time. We have some amazing ambassadors here. Why don't you guys raise your hands? We're getting to know them. We're getting to travel with them. There's 3 cohorts, 18. And then over the next 2 weeks, we're kind of figuring out the pitch. We're figuring out how to explain things. We're figuring out the culture. We're figuring out how to correct some mistakes in the past and do some new and different things. And it's good to be young again. It's good to actually do new things. It's good to bring new technology to bear. The industry's ready for it. We're all ready for it. It's been a long 5 years of bear market. It's been a long 5 years of just chaos and nonsense. And it's good to go back to first principles and bring all these pieces together. So it's my great privilege to introduce all of this to you. You're some of the first people to actually see some of these ideas unroll. You know, we've been internal for so long, for 6 years in I/O, and so it makes sense to us. But it's got to make sense to you, because ultimately you're the ones who are going to be using it. And you're the ones who are going to be building on it. And you're the ones who are going to be believing in it and making it get to the next level, just like you were the ones who used Cardano back in the day. And it's a great honor to do this in Osaka as well. You know, Osaka is where you go in Japan to actually get things done. Tokyo is where you go to talk about things. Osaka is where you go to do things. So I truly do love this town, and I love all of you. And it's been fun to get to know you over this long period of time. I see a lot of faces in the audience of people that I have met many, many times throughout all the years. And I'm going to keep coming on back and keep seeing it, because whenever I need to get recharged or reinvigorated, this is the place to be. So thank you all for coming. And I think I'm announcing, what's here? Oh, Sebastian. So Sebastian, you back there? Where you at? Oh, there you are. Come on up for a second. So Sebastian's a very good friend of mine. And he has the hardest job in the world, because while I get to draw these pretty pictures, he actually has to figure out how to make these pretty pictures work in code at scale securely for everybody. So he's the CTO of the Midnight Foundation, and he's done a lot of amazing things. And I'll turn it over to him to talk about the wazification of the stack and how we can make this actually easy and simple for people. Thank you so much.
Testing. 今夜ご参加いただきありがとうございます。So I'm Sebastian. People often call me Seba. I'm the CTO of the Midnight Foundation. And as Charles said, my goal is to try and figure out how we can take this winning strategy and make it usable and in the hands of all the users and developers. And so to kind of highlight this point, Midnight is, of course, still in testnet phase, and we plan to release later this year. And although we have some really great technology, there have been other people working in the ZK space that has come before us. ZK, this kind of concept of privacy, is not a new idea per se. It's also been around for maybe 40 years or so at this point. And so how many people have actually used this technology? So of course, I'm assuming a lot of people in this room have used Midnight. But have any of you used a blockchain or a ZK project other than Midnight? If so, please raise your hand. There's maybe 5 people who are users. Not even talking about developers, right? Users. And this is not a, can this technology solve real problems issue? Everybody understands the need for privacy, and the governments understand the need for privacy needs, large companies understand this need for privacy. But the technology is not in a way that's easily accessible to users. If after this event, you go home and you say, I want to be a user of this technology, I want to give it a shot, try myself, see what the experience is like, you'll be spending a lot of time on your computer trying to figure out how to download 10 different pieces of software, reading books, trying to figure out cryptography to get it to work. It is not a friendly user experience. And so we think the key to winning is not just building the great technology that we are working on, but really making that technology easily accessible to users. I think especially in the era of AI we're in right now, the key to winning is less about the technology and a lot about the distribution. Can we really get this great idea in the hands of users and developers so that everybody can get started with Midnight? And so we've been playing a lot around this idea and trying to build this concept we're calling the Midnight operating system, which is you go to a single web page on your browser, and it can automatically start up a node in your browser, and automatically set up a developer environment in your browser. You can only start using dApps in your browser. You can get started and really get a feel for Midnight and the technology directly from a single website. And of course, with a single website, there's a limited amount of things you can do, right? Browsers, Chrome and so on are powerful tools, but they're not as powerful as a whole computer. So it will never be a full experience. We want to allow people an opportunity to give it a shot, give it a try, get a feel for the experience, fall in love with the technology we're building, and then start as they get more and more familiar with the tools, the environment, taking those pieces one by one and setting up a more proper environment, maybe having the node run in some cloud or running on their desktop and maybe connecting with their tools that they are used to for developer experience. But we have to get people into the door first. A lot of the blockchains that have come out in ZK, if you go to their website and want to try and get started, they start you off by downloading a whole bunch of different tools. And these are hard, they're complex to figure out, and most people are not even sure what this project does and if they really even want to use it, if it really solves their problem. And I don't think that's acceptable anymore in this day. We have to make it super easy for people to get started, and that's one of the main things that our team is working on. So how do we actually do this in practice? Unfortunately, it's a lot of hard engineering work, and there's a great tool for this called WebAssembly, WASM, which you might have heard of, which allows you to take applications and run them directly in your browser. Now, this technology, WASM, again, is not a new concept. It's been around for a long time, but it's been growing in adoption year by year, and there's a lot of new standards being proposed to this standard to allow running computer programs directly in your browser. And so our team's been working really hard to be able to generate proofs and privacy of execution of these programs. We've been working really hard on trying to get ways to take different programs and combine them together and run them in the browser operating system. And we're going to have some proof of concepts of this over the coming months. Some of you might have already seen these on my Twitter profile. We'll have more stuff coming out. But to kind of give you an idea of the experience we're trying to build, the goal is that when you go to this website, it starts up a Midnight node directly in your browser. No need to download anything. You get a full node, starts to create blocks. You can connect a wallet to it. And we allow you to start building dApps yourself if you are a developer. So you have a editor directly in the web page. You can start writing your code, compile it, and it deploys it directly into the node in the web page. And when it deploys a dApp, it automatically generates a CLI, it automatically generates documentations. You can connect AI agents to the application you just built and start playing around with it. And then we also have a dApp store built in. So you can see some example apps built by other people, double click on it, and it connects the smart contract to your node and spins up the front end. So you can start using these applications and getting a feel for it. And so importantly, you can see we're getting a feel for this whole experience. You know, we want you to have developers get started, users get started, all within this OS sandbox and get them hooked on the experience. And as they become comfortable with it and they start liking it, they'll eventually want more. They'll say, well, I don't like this, built-in wallet experience. It's too limited. I want to connect it to a great wallet I already use, like Eternal, like Laos, like Socius, and all these other wallets in our ecosystem. And so they can take our, in-browser mini example and start taking that out. And they say, okay, I don't want to run my own node. I want to run my own somewhere else. And allow them to fall in love first before they start connecting and downloading all these different environments to get the full power of Midnight. And so if you have been following, we've started this project called Starstream, which is this project who is focused on, one, building this experience I described, but bringing that to both Midnight and Cardano. And so we have a lot of work going on with this. We, in fact, have a Starstream working group on Discord if you're interested in joining. We have a few hundred users and developers in this working group already contributing with us from a few different companies, trying to build out this experience. And so if this is something that you're interested in, we're working with a few different standards bodies and different companies on this topic, so we're definitely happy to have any other contributors or people interested in joining. But we want to really take the technologies that we are working on and bring them out to everybody. So as we're working on this whole operating system experience in parallel, we also have to make sure that we have some experiences at launch, right? So for every blockchain, you want to have an aspirational goal. was the ultimate experience you can bring to people. How do we get there? And let's make progress towards that. We also want to be pragmatic, and we don't want shipping Midnight to take years or months. We want it as soon as possible, and I'm sure all of you do as well. And so, of course, we're working very hard in parallel on the Midnight mainnet release, and we'll have quite a few launch partners working with the release of Midnight itself. Now, we have quite a few different segments we're targeting on this, and we'll have others people talking about these concepts later on. But we'll have a whole variety of stuff like DEXs and games and NFT marketplaces and a whole variety of dApp partners focusing on different market segments. So the goal is we want to have a solid list of launch partners. They're coming out building the core experiences we expect from the Midnight ecosystem. And as we have partners coming out launching real applications, we'll have this parallel track building this great experience so that we can all merge these efforts together going forward and build a truly amazing ecosystem together. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of the North Star, right? What we're aiming for the user experience. And you'll hopefully see a lot of that coming out. You've probably seen already some of it coming out. But I think if we're able to win this, we'll be able to blow the competition out of the water, because nobody has, as you saw from the hands raised, nobody has a good experience. And I think we have a very good track to get a lot of this out the door within the coming months I've been working on. And so I'm very confident about the work of our team. And hopefully with that, I can call up Scott, who is somewhere, to talk more about the partners we have. Talk more about the partners we have coming out in the Midnight ecosystem.
Thanks, Seba. Hello? Yeah, we can hear me? Perfect. Do we have clicker? Clicker's this side. Sorry, guys. All right, everyone. Thanks for having me. Always excited to follow Charles and Seba, who are super eloquent about this topic, so you're going to have to bear with me. I guess just to reiterate, so I'm Scott, VP of Ecosystem, working from the foundation team to really understand how we grow our builder universe, whether that's enterprises, whether that's individual developers, whether that's new startups building on top of Midnight. So I think as it was kind of covered, like originally we had the first flavor of blockchain where transparency was equated to anonymity. Everything was public straight away off the bat. So whether it was a transaction or interaction, you could see exactly what was happening, and it was visible forever. And that had some really great benefits, as Charles alluded to earlier on, but like ultimately caused a bunch of problems where people could look on chain, they could understand what you were doing, they could analyze your behaviors, and that scared a lot of people off. So there's probably many people out there who have tried building on chain and are like, this isn't going to work for me. Like, I don't love this. People can see what's happening. They can see how much money I'm making. They can see who my customers are. And what we've really done here is try to solve that problem. So when you're building, it's like decreases trust. It causes causes value to leak. And it's not because these builders don't like public systems. Like, public permissionless chains are amazing. They're a lot more secure than their private counterparts, and everyone could come and participate in them. But that's just wasn't anything out there until we brought in Midnight and a concept of rational privacy. This is the piece we talked about earlier on, around being able to choose what you disclose, whether that's on the asset level or the transaction level. You can choose what you can show to people, and that's just a really powerful concept, whether it's Charles sharing that he's got gout with us, or whether it's us sharing that there's a bar open later on. You know, you've got these two options. So on Midnight, everything's private by default. So whatever you're doing is hidden. There's no metadata leakage. It's all private. Now, the word that we use at Midnight a lot is the word disclosure, which is a fancy word for saying control and choosing what you show and what you don't show, whether it's at a business level or an individual level. And that's what we enable. That choice. And just like the Cardano ecosystem, as Charles alluded to, we've been doing this for 6 years. It's going to take time. We're going to do it the right way. and it's going to come to market in a pragmatic, practical way, where we want genuine builders who are interested in building for the long term. We recognize this isn't going to create a generational shift in the next 3, 6, 9 months, but there are plenty of businesses and use case out there who will benefit this. So it's more around building systems that will change how we live, work, play, etc. for decades, rather than just for the next hype cycle, which obviously we're all here for, but we'd rather have technology that changed the world on that side. In terms of industries that we're working with at the moment, these are some of the main benefits that we see, and where we see the most traction is in financial industry, the healthcare industry, governance. So that's mainly identity and private voting, and you can think about some countries in the world where voting is problematic, and having that be private and provable is really important. And then the last one is in artificial intelligence, whether this is machine to machine talking to each other, whether this is proving inference further down the stack. So what we're here to talk about as part of the Cardano ecosystem is how we can bring Cardano dApps over to Midnight. So it's not about migrating, it's not about rewriting code, it's not about scrapping your existing app on Cardano. It's about finding complementary opportunities to add privacy to what you do today. And me and the team are around. Where's Taro? Taro, put your hand up. Can't see him. He's our country manager for Japan. He's here to help you get that sorted in the world of Japan. So yeah, come talk to us. The ambassadors are here as well if you hadn't noticed. Cool. And you don't need to be technical to be involved in the Midnight ecosystem. Decentralized ecosystems are about more than just the tech. They're about taking different business functions and creating resilient organizations. We're starting with that community piece, which is being led by my man Jack, who you met earlier on. Go on, Jack.
Thanks, Scott. Hey, everyone. Community is very important at Midnight, and the heart of that community is the Night Force. The guys are at the back. They've had their hands up twice tonight. The Night Force are our global network of ambassadors. They help us to bring the good word of privacy to the world. They're content creators. They're event hosts. They really help us in so many ways to bring the message of Midnight to the world. And the Night Force is growing on a daily basis, and we would love to have you join us. So if you are interested in helping us to bring Midnight to the world, please come up to me after these talks or speak to some of the guys. You can also join our Midnight Discord. This is where the conversation is happening. I'm in there regularly. The guys are all in there. Charles is often in there too. We would love to have you join the conversation. You can also follow us on X, and Taro, who is around, has also launched some local channels for Japan, so very important that you join those as well. So I hope to see you there. Thanks so much. Back to you, Scott.
Okay, so the man who missed his shout out twice, Taro, is here. Like, just wave. You got mentioned twice while you're in the Toulouse, Taro. Perfect. Okay, so I think just to end on our chunk is, look, we're here to support builders working at Midnight. We've got an excellent developer relations team working with their different technical advisors who can come in and help you get onboarded. We've got a solutions engineering team to help get everything set up and understand how to crack what is a maturing code base. We've got a team on the business development side who are here to help understand how you can grow your business, how commercially viable it is. And then also for later stage enterprise companies, there is a team of very experienced individuals who are here to help you understand how you can implement blockchain and obviously Midnight technologies. I think the key thing here at Midnight that we value is that we want to be super pragmatic. We want to be very collaborative, so we're willing to work with everybody to better understand how they can integrate Midnight and how it can benefit their business. And then I think one thing which is underestimated in crypto land is we would like the companies building on top of us to go ahead and be real businesses and make money. The bar is really low when you look at other chains outside of Ethereum in terms of real revenue generating businesses building on those chains. Outrageous to say, we'd like to do it differently. We'd like companies on top of Midnight to be profitable, to be growing, to be sustainable companies. So I think when you're talking to us, just bear that in mind. We want to help you guys build real businesses beyond just YOLO, etc. So yeah, come up to us, find us. There's Sabrina knocking around as well. Where are you, Sabrina? Wave at everybody. There we go, hiding in the corner. Sabrina's one of our community managers. So yeah, looking forward to hearing more. And just to echo Jack, you can find us in Discord, you can find us in X, get on there, it's where all the good things happen. And now I'm going to hand over to Kavinda from Intersect. Thank you very much, everybody.
Well, good evening, everyone. And it's great to be in Osaka. And like Charles mentioned, this is the place Cardano began. So it's very nice to be here. And it's always a pleasure to be here in Japan and also in Osaka because, as Charles mentioned, it's a place of calm seriousness. And I think it's a very good place for us to talk a little bit about this. And I think it's the most perfect place to talk about this, about Cardano evolving. So the questions that we ask are changing now. What are these questions? It's not about what are we going to build or whether we can build it. We are also asking this question about can we govern it? How can we govern this? Because Cardano is evolving, there are new things that we are learning as we go on. One of that is the new capabilities that we are learning currently without losing the principles that Cardano started with. And also scaling and collaboration without losing the decentralization aspect of it, without centralizing it. And also, another thing that we are learning is how to add new partners without actually fragmenting this ecosystem. So this is why we have this on screen today. Intersect at midnight. What does that mean? It's a reflection point about where this ecosystem is currently going. So just as much as the technology aspect of it, I think a question we are asking is governance, collaboration, and delivery. How are these things going to be solved as the ecosystem evolves? So just to say a little bit about that today, I think we need to talk about Intersect. So maybe some of you know what Intersect is, maybe some of you don't. Intersect is a young organization. It's about roughly around 2 years old. So we are the member-based organization of Cardano that supports the on-chain governance as well as ecosystem collaboration. So what does this really mean? Like I said, when Cardano evolved, we have different things now. We have multiple founding entities. We have different engineering teams. We have individual engineering teams that are building, the groups of people who are building, companies who are building. And we have an on-chain governing mechanism right now, currently at play. So when we have all of these things as the ecosystem evolves, what do we need? We also need a coordination layer. Why? Because when we have decentralization, without having coordination, it kind of risks being a little bit chaotic or slows things down a bit. So we need to think about that. So where does these three things come from? Governance, coordination, and delivery. So when it comes to governance, I mean, any type of good governance, you have three strong pillars. You have some notion of democratic consent, you have some notion of an institution, and then you also have a notion of a constitution. So most of you know that we had our constitutional convention last year in 2024 December. So from there, we've come a long way. We unlocked the Cardano's treasury, and we did a lot of things during last year. So when it comes to our constitution, it really does have a profound effect on the governing mechanism of Cardano. And it's a living and breathing document. Why do I say this? Because just last week, we had our first constitutional amendment, which was proposed by a Japanese community member, which was approved by the D-Reps living globally. So what does that tell you? That's a beautiful sign that this ecosystem is governed by you, which is the community. You govern it. You own it now. So when that's the case, and you unlock the Cardano's treasury, during last year, we had the first community-owned budgeting cycle. With Intersect, we helped coordinate that, and we helped administer that. So just so you know, over 270 million ADA worth of contracts is currently being administered by Intersect. And we do the delivery management for it too. So you own the governing process, and Intersect is helping coordinate it, making sure that those decisions that were taken is getting executed properly. So it's a very unique situation that you have with Intersect. And during last year, we had a very interesting time period. Not everything was rosy. We had pitfalls. We had to change things as we go along. It's because governance at this scale on blockchain ecosystem, it has never happened before. It has never happened before. So it's the first time it's happening at this scale. So we had to figure out our path as we go on. So Intersect had a really, really tough task to carry out, which was to create a path where there was none. And we did that. And we got the process done. Now we have a process for treasury budgeting cycle. Is that the most perfect one? Probably not, but we can refine it. With the community feedback, we are helping refine it as we go on to 2026. So what does Midnight joining Intersect mean? So Midnight is an enterprise member of Intersect now, which is awesome. Why? Because Intersect has all of these people there when it comes to the Cardano ecosystem. And now Midnight is coming into Intersect and engaging through our committees, our working groups, our governance discussions, where decisions are being taken, technical discussions, talking about all of these things as we go on. Why do I say this is important? Because as Charles very rightly explained in detail, how important privacy is when it comes to designing products and services. Privacy, selective disclosure, compliance-aware design, these are things that need to go into it early. Why? Because it creates better systems. But if it goes through later on, what happens? There's going to be bad trade-offs. So the Midnight team brings these expertise right to the heart of Cardano's roadmap. So how you should see it is that Cardano and Midnight. So Midnight is not outside the system. Cardano and Midnight are symbiotic. So let's zoom out a little bit and go back to when Cardano started. We had a certain vision of how we did things. And just as Japan appreciates systems that are carefully planned and built to last a long time, Cardano was built on first principles. No matter how long it takes, might be a harder pathway to go forward, we took that because we wanted to make sure that things we build lasts. So that didn't just apply for protocol design. I think it's being applied to the governance mechanism as well. And also the Cardano's 2030 vision. Secure, reliable, censorship-resistant infrastructure for mission-critical applications. What does mission-critical applications mean? They mean systems that societies and economies around the world are going to be using, not just for experiments, but for real-life uses. So how do you see this working? This is how I see it working. Cardano brings the foundational layer, the decentralization, the security, and the governance legitimacy to this. And Midnight extends that with privacy, selective disclosure, transparency within reason, for real-life applications, for institutions, for governments, for enterprises, for them to make sure that they don't compromise on trust. And then where does Intersect come into all of this? Intersect is the intersection point. We're the neutral party. We're helping coordinate all of these things, where everybody can come together. Could be a builder, could be someone who's a blockchain enthusiast, could be a community member, could be an enterprise, company, single individual. That's the intersection point. As you know, recently we got together and created Pentad. So Pentad is where all of the Cardano's founding entities, which is Input Output Group, Cardano Foundation, Emergo, together with Midnight Foundation, have come together to expedite Cardano's critical infrastructure upgrades. And Intersect is a neutral party helping administer and coordinate all of these things. So that all of these things that are being built on this ecosystem gets done the right way. So we are entering this path where a lot of these things that we have been talking about for a long time is getting executed. And Intersect is at the heart of it. So we have this tagline, which I usually say at Intersect, is that we say, help build the future of Cardano together. But what I think it means is that while we get all of these ecosystem partners and external people to come together, we are helping to build the future of blockchain technology together. So having said that, I'll finish off by saying that Japan, with its resilience, the community, the belief that they've had throughout these years, especially in Osaka, it's worth mentioning it. We are evolving, and we want you to come with us in this journey. And if you're not a part of Intersect, make sure you join. It's completely free, and get involved in the conversation, because this is your ecosystem, and we are here to help you coordinate things. So thank you so much, and thank you once again for being here. I'd like to invite Josh from Sunday Labs to speak about Cardano client diversity. Thank you.
Hi there, everybody. I'm Josh from Sunday Labs. I'm a software engineer. I'm very excited to be here in Japan. It's my first time, and I've been absolutely loving it. And I'm also excited to talk about what a big passion of mine is node diversity or client diversity on Cardano. So the big question we need to consider when we talk about node diversity is what happens when a single node is the 100% source for the network. And we can look at some history to see some examples of what could happen. So one great example of this is all the way back in 2016, which in crypto can feel pretty prehistoric, actually. There was what they call the Ethereum Shanghai DOS attack. So back in 2016, Ethereum had two nodes running the network. They had the Geeth node, which was about 88% of the network, so a vast majority. And they had one minority client they called the parity client. Right ahead of a very big conference in Shanghai in 2016, a malicious attacker decided to exploit something they had found in the Geeth node that caused all of the nodes to crash. And this was very, very traumatic for Ethereum. Block production slowed significantly. End users basically had unusable dApps. It was really awful. Fortunately, the parity client maintained the chain, even though block production slowed quite drastically. And actually, attacks continued for several weeks. Attackers continued to find exploits. Developers would fix it. It would go back and forth. It was a whole thing for a very long time. And it led to a lot of cleanup work on the Ethereum side. They not only had one hard fork, they actually had two hard forks to clean it up, and then they had a lot of extra sort of off-chain cleanup they had to do to make sure that the network was back and ready to be used by everybody. But we don't have to go so far back in time or to somewhere so far away, such as Ethereum. Cardano saw something similar happen just last year in 2025. And I'm not going to go into too much detail. I actually recommend a blog post from my CTO at Sunday Labs, Pi Lanningham. He wrote a great blog post going into detail about all of it, what it meant for Cardano at the time, the technicals, all of that. So I'm not going to go into that too much. Basically, the short of it is somebody, we think, accidentally found a bug on the testnet by submitting a malformed transaction that caused a fork in that network. The devs very quickly fixed it, but unfortunately, a malicious actor then intentionally redid the attack on mainnet, and it caused a fork on mainnet the next day. After a lot of great collaboration, very organically, people from the community, founding entities, they all came together. They were able to get SPOs upgraded to the right version without the bug, and actually Cardano healed itself. Ouroboros worked beautifully. Some may say miraculously, but really it was a feat of engineering and a lot of research that went into it. And it only took about 14 hours. So we had no hard forks. We had no off-chain cleanup work after that. But it was detrimental to the network, and we want to do our best to avoid that in the future. So the way that I propose that is avoided in general is something called node diversity or client diversity. Those are the same thing. So what does node diversity actually mean? To me, node diversity is having multiple independent, interoperable implementations of a single blockchain specification. So those are a lot of big words. Some of them are buzzwords. So in very basic terminology, the key elements we'll see are that there is the same protocol implemented in different code. It's really important it has different code so that you don't share vulnerabilities across nodes. We'll also see generally they have different design choices. That's because different languages lend themselves more easily to different design choices. But ultimately, the most important piece of it is that they all have conformance. They all agree with each other, and they all agree with some specification. So that if a block is valid, it's valid according to all of our nodes. And that's where a lot of the engineering effort in terms of testing comes in and comes together. So why do we actually care about node diversity so much? Why is this what I've been spending a lot of my time doing for the past year? Well, we saw that it's important to help against bugs and faults and other sort of malicious attacks on the network. But another form of resilience that we get from node diversity that I really value is actually one against organizational risks. So anybody that's done any development work, especially in open source world, knows that funding is an issue, sort of interest and focus are also issues that you'll see in open source development, and other organizational risks, of course, exist. And so if we have multiple teams independently building multiple nodes, if one of those teams, for whatever reason, stops being able to produce their code, Cardano continues to develop and continues to thrive. Another great benefit that we'll see from node diversity is we'll realize that we get a lot of new innovations. This is not just through competition, which of course exists. Developers want to solve the problem the best they can, and they want to attract people to use their solution. But also, excitingly, at least to me, we get a lot of more collaboration. People come together, and my solution might be very different than somebody else's solution. We get to talk about it and realize new ideas and new outlooks on the problems we've been looking at independently without each other's insights. So where are we right now with node diversity on Cardano? So right now, obviously, IOG developed the Cardano node in Haskell, which is, as far as I know, the only node that's developing blocks currently today. But there's a lot of things in very different stages of development right now that are very exciting. So the first one is Amaru. That's written in Rust. That's what I contribute to myself. But we also have nodes that are written in C#. We have TypeScript. We have Golang. We have Scala. We have C++. And I'm sure there are also many more that I'm not directly aware of. That's the beauty of a decentralized ecosystem. People just build what they want to build. So let's talk about the one that I know the most, Amaru, because I contribute to it. So as I mentioned, Amaru is a Cardano node implemented in Rust. A fun fact I like about Amaru is that it's actually funded by the Cardano community. It's truly a grassroots project from the very start. It actually was the very first treasury withdrawal on Cardano went to funding Amaru for 2025. It's being developed and maintained by Pragma. It's a member project of Pragma is the terminology that they would use. And Pragma is a member-based open source association made up of a few different developing companies on Cardano. And then obviously the question that I get from a lot of engineers and non-engineers is, why did we pick Rust? Well, there's a lot of reasons to that, but primarily one is it has strong foundations. It's a very well-funded language. There's a lot of people actively working on Rust. And also, It's maintained by like 20 plus engineers, and they have open governance through an RFC system, which means that if I want to try and suggest a change to the language, I can, and that's not true in all languages. The other thing is it's attractive to developers. Stack Overflow runs an annual survey asking devs a ton of questions about technologies, and Rust has consistently been ranked the #1 most admired technology, I think, since 2023. So a lot of people really want to build with Rust and learn Rust. And actually, it's already used in blockchain spaces a lot. Solana, Polkadot, Near, Midnight now is built in Rust, and many more. So we're able to sort of build what developers know. It's also just very relevant even in Cardano. It's the second most advanced ecosystem in Cardano behind Haskell, and we have all of our crypto primitives and all of the math wizardry is already there for us in Rust, so that makes development a little bit easier. As far as what Armor is looking like right now, we have really, really low resource requirements. We're able to run it on a Raspberry Pi. We gave those out at the Cardano Summit, and so those are sitting on desks all over the world, syncing with mainnet right now. Generally takes about 1 GB of RAM and very low CPU usage. We also get to benefit from following the Haskell team in development. So the Haskell team soon will be implementing on-disk ledger storage, and that's very exciting. But because we're building from scratch, we get to do it already. So we have that sort of by default in Amaru. Another thing that we focus on is maintaining compatibility with different targets. So that would be ARM, RISC-V, and WASM. In short, what that means is you can use Amaru in all kinds of different environments. You could use it on a phone, you could use it in a browser, and RISC-V gives us some cool and interesting zero-knowledge stuff we could do with it as well. The thing that I'm the most proud of and I'm really enjoying about building Amaru is that we're actually not just building a node. We actually focus on building libraries that are composable, anybody can use them, and they come together to build the node that you run at the end of the day. And really the goal of that is to try and make Cardano development more accessible to anybody. And this has already proven itself to be very useful because back in that 2025 attack, Sam, who is somewhere in the room, there you are, Sam, he started doing a tool that I helped contribute to that actually found the point of divergence in the fork and followed both the chains and stored all the data, so we made sure we had that so there's no data loss. And that was using the Amaru library. So already Amaru has proven to be helpful even outside of just being a node. And the big number that everybody asks is our current target for block production is Q2 of this year. So stay on the lookout. That should be coming soon, and we're very excited. As far as where we fit into the broader ecosystem right now, we've started hosting node diversity workshops in partnership with IOG and others. There's been 2, and then a couple more sort of less formal ones. One was in Paris and one was in Toulouse, which shows how global this really is. And those are just opportunities to have these developers come together to discuss things like specifications or conformance testing, all of the things that sort of actually define what Cardano is outside of just the Haskell node. We're also working really hard to lay the groundwork for this development work so that other people can come along and build their own nodes and have a much easier time than we're having at the start. And so one of the ways we're doing that is we contribute a lot to the Cardano Blueprint, which is another great project started by IOG, which is supposed to serve as an open source reference guide for Cardano. So any questions you might have about the Cardano protocol, that would be where you would go. And so we're making sure that that's filled in with all the right answers. And another fun thing we get to do is we get to find some bugs. Everybody likes finding bugs, everybody likes fixing bugs. So as we go through the code base, the Haskell code base to make sure that we're doing everything right, we get to find some bugs that doesn't follow the specification, and those have been fixed. So that's another great benefit, not just to our node, but to the Cardano ecosystem. So the big picture that I see of a multi-client or multi-node future, the first sort of pillar of that is we get to see true decentralization. So when people talk about decentralization in any blockchain, they like to talk about validators and block producers and all of that being very decentralized, which is very important. And Cardano has that very well. But soon we're going to have a decentralization of the actual software that's doing that work. So that's very exciting. And basically, we get to see the very essence of what Cardano is. The protocol itself becomes a shared resource. I also think we're going to see faster protocol improvements and evolutions as you get multiple teams working on independent nodes. Those people can prototype new features and sort of go through iterations independently in parallel. So we get to see all sorts of new features tested at the same time. As I mentioned, we're trying to lower those barriers to entry, meeting developers where they are instead of asking them to learn our languages and our specifications. We can build for them. And finally, we also get some enterprise readiness benefits as well. Enterprise products really like to use redundancy. They like to use multi-client solutions, and by having more clients, they get their multi-client solutions. So really, the big picture of all of this is that we're watching Cardano development becoming a true open source, decentralized system. It's being funded by the ecosystem, it's being funded by the community, and it's being built by teams that may or may not have some minor or major disagreements with each other, but we're all building towards one goal together, and that's gonna be a stronger and more resilient Cardano. So the main idea I wanna leave you with is that Cardano development isn't slowing down, it's actually expanding. And on that note, I wanna pass it off to Michael from the Laos team. Thank you.
Hey everyone, how you doing? It's great to be here in Osaka. This is actually my second time. I was here in 2018 for the Rugby World Cup. I'm originally from New Zealand, so of course I was here with my son to watch New Zealand play England. But unfortunately, some of you may remember this, a big hurricane came at that time and the game was cancelled, so we had to quickly leave Osaka. So it's good to be back here and spend some more time. So I'm wearing this cool Midnight jumper, but I'm actually not part of the Midnight team. I'm part of the IOG team, and I work for the Cardano core team as a product manager. So today I'm really excited to be the last speaker and talk to you about the great work that we've been doing on Laos, which is Cardano's scaling solution for the future. So what is Laos and what does it do? Well, in a nutshell, Laos is the flagship product that's going to catapult Cardano to be on par with our competitors in terms of transaction throughput and capacity to support more and more users and applications. And one thing that I'll say quite early now in this presentation, right at the beginning, because it's the question that a lot of people want to know, is when Laos? Well, after much research, design, and planning, we are in development of Laos at this moment, and we'll be releasing this year in 2026. So what has been the challenge facing us? Well, the current maximum throughput of the network today is 10 to 15 transactions per second. Now, this number may not sound like much, but it's actually been a suitable foundation for Ouroboros, sorry. Let me start again. It's been a suitable foundation for Ouroboros, proving the design and the robustness of the protocol. But now we need to move forward to a higher transaction throughput in order to compete and drive further adoption. Another factor is that SBOs in the long term need to support the cost of their operations from transaction fees instead of from block rewards. To do this, we need a minimum network usage of 50 transactions per second. So we can't stay where we are here at 10 transactions per second. We must move forward and support higher transaction throughput. And as we do this, it is crucial that we maintain the existing security and resiliency of the network. And this is not an easy feat at all in terms of engineering, in terms of keeping the scale of decentralization that we have at Cardano while trying to achieve the metrics to be on par with the competition. So, introducing Laos, Cardano's next generation consensus protocol. So with Laos, for the first release to mainnet, we're aiming to achieve a 50x improvement, so 50 times faster in network capacity. So with this capacity increase, the SBOs can earn more from transaction fees, as I mentioned before, and crucially, at this throughput, we'll maintain the security and preserve the robustness of the network. However, we're not stopping at 500 transactions per second, which is 50 times more. This is just the first step on our journey. Soon we'll be showcasing that Laos can support 1,000 transactions per second. And this will give us the confidence, when we prove this, that we're on the right path where we can safely step up to 100x improvement and beyond with subsequent releases to mainnet. And the reason why we're going in this phased approach, we're not going straight from 10 transactions per second up to 1,000, is that we need to bring SPOs along with us. There's a lot to upgrade the infrastructure, upgrade the maintaining and supporting of the system. Okay, so how does Laos work? Well, there's a lot to the design, so I won't go into all the detail, but at a high level, we're introducing a new block type. So this new block type is called an endorser block. The existing block, we're now calling a ranking block. So you have the ranking blocks, the existing ones, and the new block called the endorser block. So the secret sauce here is the endorser block can pack in a lot more transactions, like a lot more than a ranking block. And the endorser block is linked to the ranking block. Part of the design is that the ranking block helps us keep the security of the network. So the ranking block will always be consistently produced as it is today. And then the endorser block will be produced in parallel with any spare capacity that the SPOs may have. Okay, so this slide here is showing the performance metrics that we're aiming for in this first release. So as I mentioned, a 50x increase in throughput, which translates to the number we actually talk about, which is internally, which is 300 transaction kilobytes per second, which is 500 transactions per second. And at this confirmation time, and at this rate, we'll have a confirmation time of between 20 to 80 seconds. So to clarify, why are we measuring throughput in transaction kilobytes per second, which is a mouthful, rather than the traditional TPS? Well, this slide here is a depiction of a typical block. And you can see there's many different size transactions in those gray squares, and then there's even individual blue ADA transactions. And as you can see, they're all different kind of sizes. So it's very important in terms of measuring throughput accurately. We must consider the size as well as the number of transactions added to the blockchain per second, hence transaction kilobytes per second. Okay, and what do we mean by the confirmation time will be between 20 to 80 seconds? Well, this diagram here shows data from our recent simulations, and you can see the confirmation times with Laos. And as you can see, around 300 transaction kilobytes per second, the transactions are confirmed between 20 to 80 seconds, which depends upon, like, as we get faster, you can see in the lower graph, things start to get congested, and the transactions that come in later, they get queued up more in the mempool. But with our tweaks in our design, we're going to fix that, and we're going to even get faster, as I mentioned, up to 1,000 transactions per second. Okay, so we've got a video here to spice it up. So this is just showing one of our simulations of a network, a small network. And you can see here a block being produced. So this is actually a voting packet that's been sent out. Okay, now it's going really fast. But you'll start to see different blocks going out. So there are the endorser blocks that I mentioned and the ranking blocks. So you can see here, it should zoom up. So here you can see in red is a ranking block, and in blue is an endorser block being sent almost at the same time. But the ranking block is given priority in order to keep the security of the network. Okay, next slide. Okay, and this slide here shows what we have today with the existing consensus protocol. It's Praos, and all those green dots represent transactions. The dark green dots going along the x-axis, That's the typical rate of throughput we have today. But the maximum capacity, as I mentioned, is around 10 transactions per second or 15 transactions per second. So if we were running at maximum capacity, all those light green dots would be the transactions filling up. And then you can see them being put into blocks and distributed. Now this is Laos. And as you can see, the capacity is way more. And we're just here in this diagram depicting 100 TPS. But like I said, in this first release, we're going to be doing 500 TPS. So you can just see the scale of transactions that are going to be going through. And this next video here just goes further into just giving you the idea of that scale. So that's just what I showed you, 100 TPS. And now if we times that by 5, that gives you the idea of 500 TPS. And then 1K TPS is what we're going to be showcasing in a few months. And then that's 10,000 TPS, which is another number that we're going to aim towards. So you can just see the scale of transactions that we're looking to implement in Laos. Okay, so I need to hurry along because I'm out of time, but this is the roadmap. We've implemented the design and prototyping phases and simulations, as I mentioned. We're now going to be working on showcasing the 1000 TPS, and our first public testnet will be released at the end of Q2 this year. And as I mentioned at the start, we'll be releasing Laos this year in 2026. Okay, so finally I want to close with why Laos matters for Cardano. Well, it will enable high volume applications, reposition Cardano as a high throughput blockchain while maintaining robust decentralization like no other. And the higher capacity will attract more developers, dApps, and users to the ecosystem. This aligns with our long-term vision of establishing Cardano as being the best-in-class blockchain. So Laos, a 50x improvement in throughput capacity in the first release, all while maintaining the security and decentralization of the network. Coming very soon, this year in 2026. So I'll pass over to Charles to close us off.
It's so cool, isn't it? We have so many amazing things that are under wraps. Laos is the magnum opus of Cardano. When we started the Cardano research agenda 10 years ago, Ouroboros was the first provably secure proof-of-stake protocol. And actually, part of it was designed in Tokyo, at Tokyo Institute of Technology, by Mario Laranjera and others. It was a collaborative effort involving dozens of academics across the world. And when we started working on it, it started in a very inflexible state. It had a synchronized network and no adaptive security. And that was a 2016 proof. And it was quite a bit of work to watch it roll its way through. And then paper by paper by paper, Ouroboros became not only more practical, but it became something that we thought could solve the blockchain trilemma. We like our triangles in the cryptocurrency space, and there's this trade-off triangle between how decentralized your system is, how fast your system is, and how secure your system is. So you can make it more secure, but you slow the system down. You can make it more decentralized, but then you typically reduce security or speed inside the system. But get all three to say you're highly decentralized, very fast, and very secure. It's never been done before. No cryptocurrency has achieved this. Not Ethereum, not Solana, not Bitcoin. Bitcoin only operates at about 7 transactions a second. Very secure, very decentralized, but slow. And Cardano is going to be the first to have all three. We're going to keep that 50% Byzantine resistance. We'll have a very high throughput, and also we'll have high decentralization. We're really proud of that. The other really important part of Laos is it shows good engineering. And it does so by having a cycle. So you have Laos as the research become linear Laos, and we get that 60x. But then there's another version of Laos that we can research and that we can implement. And then there's another version of Laos that we can research and implement. So there's a nice 5 or 10 year tail of these cyclic innovations that we can bring to bear that will continue to improve the throughput of the system. So what you see this year is by no means the end. It's sufficient for quite a long time. In fact, it'll give us a lot of beautiful throughput. But actually, all throughout the rest of the decade, we're going to see huge speed gains in Ouroboros. The failure mode of Laos is to regress back to what we're running today. That's another great engineering principle, is graceful failure. So when you get on an airplane or you get on a train that's been well designed, you have a situation where, let's say, a primary system fails, the secondary system turns on, and you don't get quite the same performance, but the train stops. The airplane can land. That's good engineering. You don't want the whole thing to blow up on you. So similarly, if Cardano's primary protocol fails, we go back to the protocol that we've been running for the past 7 years, which is reliable and strong. And the network can then recover and restart. It's a basic principle from high assurance engineering. So we're very proud of that as well, that we've been able to keep those concepts going. The other side of it is that Laos is just one dimension of scaling. The extended UTXO system, each of those UTXOs, the way it's designed, they can easily be rolled up. So every one of them can be a proof. And so when you have all these zero-knowledge technologies like what Midnight is bringing, we're bringing an entire world of very complex proofs. So you can have billions of things happen off-chain. And they can all be rolled up into one thing as one transaction in the Cardano system. So Laos makes the absolute throughput go faster. Zero knowledge actually gives you the ability to reconcile the on and off chain. And as you see with Hydra, you have a whole new network to do things in as well. So we actually have 3 dimensions of scaling: zero knowledge scaling, Hydra scaling, and then the absolute scaling of the ledger. So this is what gives me confidence that the system will be able to have billions of users throughout the years, because we have places for each of those users to do their own thing, and we understand how to put those pieces together, and they're all complementary to each other, and they're not overlapping in their security models. They're independent of these things. So if one system fails, the rest of the system stays alive. If the air conditioner in the car goes out, the car should still be able to drive. It's a problem when the systems are coupled and then suddenly the car can't drive. They're unrelated systems. They shouldn't break each other. That's what Cardano's about, because we took the time to build it well. There's 10 years of conversations and history and science and careful thought that went into every component. The Western world has become so addicted to planned obsolescence. They throw things away. When I was a little kid, I was in my grandfather's basement, and I found this booklet, and I said, "Grandpa, what's this booklet?" And it was a repair manual for the vacuum cleaner. And he said, "You know, back in the day, when they sold you a vacuum cleaner, they also sold you the repair manual to tell you how to fix it." And of course, we live in 2026. What do you do when the thing breaks? You throw it away. Nobody fixes things anymore. Nobody repairs things anymore. There's planned obsolescence. So that may work for consumer products, but that should not work for the thing that runs your money system. That should not work for the thing that makes your vote secure, that secures your property ledger. We as an ecosystem have invested very heavily into high assurance, the ability to self-heal and self-repair. In fact, there was a soft fork last year. You know, it was the first time it ever happened in Cardano. And it was a scary time. We actually had 2 networks for a little bit of time. Like Bitcoin's had it happened a few times with orphan blocks. But they came back together by themselves and became one. And what was so reassuring about it, I was sitting with Agalos because we happened to have an executive workshop when the attack happened. And Agalos and we're sitting here, and we remember designing the protocol like 10 years ago. And we said, "Gosh, how does that work again? You know, what do we do here?" But what was nice is the protocol was doing everything right. Time slowed down, and it gave us the ability to have more time to heal as a network by the design of the system. So 10 hours became 30 hours by the clock of it. It's just a natural property, because somebody 10 years ago thought it would be good to design it this way, just in case something bad happens. And something bad happened, and the system worked, and it fixed itself. If that Ethereum hack that you guys saw in 2016, it took 2 hard forks and manual intervention and 6 months of time to put all the pieces back together. Think about that. And we self-healed in 14 hours. That's good engineering. Built on 1,000 conversations with community all across the world. There's no face to that. There's no language to that. There's no country to that. There's no gender to that. It's a global movement. And that's how you build great things. So you saw a lot of different people. We have people that stuck up and got elected to the board of Intersect, and they come from faraway lands like Sri Lanka. And you have people come from America. I sit there in Wyoming, and everybody in between. And each and every person has a different vision, and a different lens, and a different way of explaining what we're doing. But the core of all of it is you, the community. And that's why we love having these types of events and meeting people, seeing people, spending time with people. And it's a lot of fun to show you what's coming. You know, like Laos is a ton of fun. Hydra events is a ton of fun. The client diversity is really cool, because there's new ways to build these nodes that are totally different from how we built them. And Midnight is super cool, because we now get to do new things that we've never been able to do before and bring them to the industry as a whole. And what's cool is if you keep doing this, you wake up and you go from 1 million people to 10 million. And if you keep doing it, you wake up from you have 10 million people to 100 million people. What a lot of people outside of the Cardano ecosystem fail to remember is we don't lose our people. They stick around. The faces stay the same, and more people come. So even if it takes a little longer to do things the right way, if you're not losing your community and the community continues to grow, you'll eventually get where you need to go, and you don't leave people behind. So it means the world to all of us at Input Output. I know it means the world to everybody at the Midnight Foundation and Emergo and Intersect and other organizations, partner organizations, sister organizations, that after a decade you've kept the faith and you're still here, and after a decade you still have the same level of passion, enthusiasm, and excitement about the things we care about. And it means the world to us that we finally are able to see a lot of these visions and dreams, these aspirations, become reality. This is the first time in my career where I was in Singapore with Sam and Adam and Kyle, and we saw a Louis Vuitton purse in a vending machine, and somebody used the Hydra network to redeem some points that they had earned to get that purse. And actually that particular person had to spend, I think, like two whole days going to every booth and watching every speech, and he did it because it was his anniversary and his girlfriend was angry at him. So he wanted to earn that purse so he could give it to her to, you know, kind of mea culpa. And that's just great social physics, you know. It shows you the real world meets the digital world. But so many things had to happen. A conference had to happen. A booth had to be built. A community had to exist. A technology named Hydra had to exist. Somebody had to think it was a good idea to connect that technology called Hydra to a physical machine. They had to get the physical machine to speak that language and make that happen. Then a token had to be issued for that thing. Then we had to convince people to use it as a thing inside the conference. And then we had to convince people to spend their time on their cell phone and create a wallet on their phone to use that thing. It's 1,000 things for that one moment, for that one person to fall and a person to get it. But that's where the greatness comes. When all those things come together, all those conversations come together, all those rooms come together, all those long nights come together, that's where the greatness comes for networks. And that's how we win. It's not a flashy speech. It's not being charismatic. It's not coming out with this lovely shirt and people like the pattern. It's bringing people together and enabling them to have those conversations and giving them the tools, the freedom, the resources, and the time required to have those conversations and get them done. So these are the rooms. Get to know the ambassadors, get to know the people. If you want to become a Midnight Ambassador, we'd love to have you. If you want to join Intersect, it's very important that you do so, because that's where you have a voice on where Cardano goes. There's almost $1 billion of ADA in the Cardano treasury. Who gets to control that? You do. You are the members of the Cardano nation. You vote. Your D-reps are the government of the nation. They decide on the annual budget. Should we spend money in Osaka or should we spend money in Argentina? If you don't vote, you don't have a voice. So join Intersect, be part of that, have conversations and think about the future, the roadmap, the priorities, these types of things. And if you have a great business idea, build on Midnight, build on Cardano, bring those business ideas into the broader world and use all these new tools to do so. This is a participatory movement. There's a lot of meme coins and other cryptocurrencies, and they come and tell you, just buy my token. Invest, 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 10x, 10x, 10x. They never bother to tell you where the 10x comes from. It's off of somebody else. If you're actually going to build real wealth and real value, you have to change things. You have to create new things. You have to build something that people use every day, that are meaningful, that are connected. And thus, it must be participatory. That's how the world works. So that's who we are. That's what we've always sought to do. It's not exciting. It's boring to say, let's write math equations down and let's write code and let's sit down and have complex conversations and let's try to get this thing to work, and it doesn't work, and then we have to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and fix something that's broken. It's not fun. It's hard work. The fun part comes when it finally all comes together. And a few years later, you actually see it at scale, and it brings joy to people. And they get to see something they've never seen before, and it just is smooth, and you just tap your phone, or you see that vending machine work. And we're starting to get to those moments in the Cardano world. We're starting to finally see them. The governance was a big one for me when we brought people from 50 countries together down to Argentina. There was no guarantee they would come, but we spent 2 years planning, and 1,800 people participated throughout the process. And we had all those delegates in one room and all these beautiful flags. Sarah, I think you were there. Yeah, and Japan's flag was there, America's flag was there, and the delegates came on up and they signed the Constitution. And I brought somebody, a very special guest. His name was Mark Meckler, who's been trying to hold a constitutional convention in the United States to rewrite the U.S. Constitution. He's got 28 U.S. states involved. This is his life's journey. Spent more than 20 years of his life chasing this thing. And I brought him down to our convention, and he said, we've run a bunch of mock conventions, but I've never seen anything like this. I felt like I was at the birth of a nation. And I said, Mark, that's because you were. The Cardano Nation, we actually built one without a single gun, a single law. We brought people together over a many-year period, and we got them to believe that they actually could make a difference. And you know what? They did. That's the magic. That moment was the product of so many meetings and so much work and so much effort, and it was worth every bit of it. And I'm just excited that I'm starting to get a lot more of those moments. But that moment was produced starting in Osaka in 2015, when I had a whiteboard just like that, and I was talking to people just like that, and I said, we got this Cardano idea. It's a little crazy. We're just going to go out and do all this weird computer science stuff and hire scientists and shit and create code, and somehow, some way, it's just going to work. And then eventually it'll be like a government and millions of people will be part of it. And so, yeah, it'll be great. Kyle will be there. I don't know. Somehow we'll figure it out. And a lot of people are like, yeah, we kind of like this kid. Yeah, we'll give him a shot. And everybody thought we were crazy. We probably are. But now we're here today, and it happened. Because we didn't give up. No matter how hard it was, FTX collapsed, Luna collapsed. The United States government tried to destroy the cryptocurrency industry. They sued every single exchange in the United States. They put Roger Ver in jail. They put CZ in jail, the CEO of the largest exchange in the world, 80% of all altcoin volume. It was brutal. Everybody got subpoenaed. Everybody was being sued. There was the red dot on our heads. They wanted to kill all of us. And then literally, not only did they lose, the next president launched his own meme coin. And they changed the laws. We won. But we had to endure as an ecosystem. And we did. And we still have to overcome a lot more. There's an existential crisis in the cryptocurrency space at the moment. It's for the soul of what cryptocurrency means. The great tragedy and the great benefit of cryptocurrencies is that there's tokens. The benefit is it puts a big spotlight, and a lot of people get excited about it because there's these big valuations and big fortunes, and billionaires are made and millionaires are made, And a lot of people get to talk about how they invested early and got a great return. The tragedy is it makes everything about money. And it robs us of the reality that these systems aren't about money. They're about the redefinition of money. They're about the redefinition of society as a whole. And so many people in the press and so many people in policy and everyday people, they just think it's like a stock or a bond. A number goes up, it's better. And it can't be. It's about you, the people. It's about how we treat each other. It's how we honor each other's commitments. It's about our integrity. And it's ultimately about how we do business with each other. These are tools to constrain humans, because humans are bad at constraining themselves. No man can be his own judge. Blockchains can't lie. No matter if it's convenient or not, no matter if it's hurtful or not, they do what they're supposed to do, which is why people get hacked and they lose their money. But it's also why you can trust them, because at the end of the day, they're an impartial judge. And in a world with 8 billion people in all these countries and all these conflicts and all these lies and inconsistencies, I don't know about you, but it gives me great comfort to know there exists at least something that I could look at, and it's solid, it's reliable. I don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is, but because he existed, he created something that everything that goes into it stays. That first transaction's there forever. All the things that have happened are there forever. We created Cardano in 2017, the network comes out, everything's still there. 8 years later, 9 years later, it's still in the chain. It still exists. I can't change it, even though I'm the founder. I have no special powers, even though I'm the founder. It's not how normal social systems work. Bill Gates' experience with Microsoft is slightly different than your experience with Microsoft. He can change things, he can call people, but I can't, even though I created the thing. And that's how it should be. We all play by the same rules. And that's how society should be. So when people doubt the value of these systems or say, why do blockchains really exist? Well, you say, do you want to live in a world where you have to trust everybody all the time, including people you've never met who have no reason to be nice to you? Or do you want to live in a world where everybody's constrained by the same set of rules and they all have to play fair with each other? And then paradoxically, if you live in that world, you can trust each other. And if you can trust each other, you can love each other, and the peace comes back and the harmony comes back. So never forget the vision, never forget the goal. Every year we get some new cool things to show you. We'll have some great announcements in Hong Kong, and we'll just keep building. So I think I'm supposed to turn it over to Jack, and then if you guys want to get a picture with me or any of the team, they're all celebrities, so you should get a picture with them too. I'll stick up on stage for you guys to come on by, and because I know you all came out, and I always try to make sure that people have a chance to get a picture. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This concludes our programming for the evening. Thank you so much for joining us here in Osaka tonight. Thank you to everyone who joined us on the live stream. We do have food and refreshments. We invite you to join us for the hospitality. There's also some lovely pieces of merchandise. Make sure you pick some up on your way out. And then one last reminder to join us in Discord and to follow us on X. Thank you so much. Good night.